welcome to the Anonymous Andrew podcast. Life and the choices we make, the choices other people make. This podcast explores all things as they relate to dating and romantic relationships. Why we ignore, or choose to ignore, or miss the red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, cheating, lying, narcissistic behavior, deception, and so much more. Join me each week as we continue my journey into the modern dating world with my weekend rants, anonymous guest dating stories, and experts who share their wisdom so we can better navigate the dating terrain. If you are new to the show or have been with me from the beginning, hold on tight for the Anonymous Andrew experience. Greetings, Anonymous Andrew. Okay, before we get started, we're going to be doing something brand new. I have joined an organization of a group of podcasters who have gotten together and they would like to support each other. And I've always said this from the beginning. Podcasters should never look at each other as competitors. We should support each other, especially the independent podcasters, not the ones that are like brought to you by, major studios and radio stations, but those of us who labor through the week and have limited resources or limited money and don't have sponsorship. But we're looking for help from our fellow podcasters. So I've joined an organization, and what we're going to be doing is swapping trailers. So what you're about to hear is a podcast trailer that I pulled from the database. There's about 20 or 25 of them. So just take a listen to this. It's kind of like a commercial, but I'm not getting paid for it because while I play their trailer, they're going to be playing my trailer. So it's kind of an even swap. And I really, really like the idea. It's kind of cool. So for the next foreseeable future, you're going to be hearing other podcasters' promos or trailers on here. And I hope you give them a listen because that's what it's all about. We're trying to promote each other. So take a listen to this and then we'll get into today's episode.
Welcome to Audibly Haunted. I'm your host, Ani Kachadorian. The paranormal is all around us. Sometimes it's the lady in black that haunts your basement, or maybe the dark shadows that lurk out in nature, or maybe places of the past. And sometimes the supernatural, the unexplainable, live within the pages of the books upon your shelves. Here at Audibly Haunted, we dive into different haunted literary works, myths, and folklores every week, simply trying to, make sense of it all. You can find Audibly Haunted on Instagram at Audibly Haunted, and you can find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Again, welcome to Audibly Haunted. So, let's dive into that.
Thank you for giving that a listen, and do give Audibly Haunted a listen. We're all trying to support each other. So, all right, let's get on to today's episode. And I have somebody unique. So I'm going to stop the edit here and go on with the pre-recorded version that I've already set up. Greetings. Welcome to the Anonymous Andrew podcast, Life and the Choices We Make. So, today I have a bit of a unique and special guest, all the way from Germany. I have a woman named Gao Motsemme, and it's actually spelled Gaomotsemme. And what caught my eye about her when I was presented with her bio is that she's a human MRI and a psychic surgeon. I know. Sounds like woo woo. But I really enjoyed this interview. And she does something about halfway through the interview that kind of blew my mind. As you guys know, or if you've been following the Bouncing Ball, I had hip replacement surgery several weeks ago, coming up on 2.5 weeks. And I did not tell my guest before she got on the show that I was home recovering from hip replacement. And yet she picked up on it through her energy from the human MRI and psychic surgeon. It's amazing. So see if you can catch the point where she does that. All right, enjoy this because this was a really unique story and I really enjoyed doing this one. So enjoy. We'll chat on the other side. Welcome to the Anonymous Andrew podcast, Life and the Choices We Make. And I am really excited to introduce my guest for this episode. I would like to welcome Gao Motsemme. And Gao Motsemme, well, let me say welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I have to read your credentials because they're quite interesting and different than I've come across. So once again, I bring another episode with new, I've been having life coaches and romance coaches and dating coaches and authors on, but you are quite different. You are a human MRI and psychic surgeon, a freedom illuminator. You have a certificate or certified in APMG Change, which you can explain to us, and you also speak 3 languages: English, Deutsch, and Setswana. And you're also a mother of 3. So you have quite a plate full.
Yeah.
All right. So I like to hear your story because I did read some of it in your bio. And if you'd like to share any parts of that with us, and then we'll get into how you help people transform their lives.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. And before we start, I want to start by extending my greetings to the audience. And I do that in my native language. Dumelang, Dumelang, Lokai. And Dumelang in direct translation means agree. Lokai means where are you? And since we are here gathering at Anonymous Andrew's podcast, my question to you as an audience, as you are listening now, is what are you agreeing to every time when you show up here? What is your intention? And where are you? Are you still stuck in what happened or whatever that happened during the day, or you are willing to let it go just in this now moment and say, I'm willing to show up fully for myself and connect? Maybe I can hear the nugget. It can be one line that you may need for today. And with that said, bringing in a little bit of change management, which is the key. When it comes to change, the best way we can be is in the not knowing. And I just invite us as we are here. This is the first time I'm meeting Andrew, and this is the first time I'm meeting you as an audience. Can we not know? That is, can we let go of all the information we have gathered over time and be here and not even interpret what we hear from the mind, but more be in the body and allow the body to inform us without us informing the body? So thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I cannot wait to get into more of this.
So my story, I come from Botswana and in Maung, just a small village. And I was born in a very traditional family. And I call myself Gao Motsemme the Queen. And that is just coming from, I was born knowing who I was. I was unapologetic from day one. But there is who we are in truth, and there is who we are told to be, who we are taught to be. So, as any other family, I say my family has its own dysfunction. So, it had that. And besides that, there was a part of questioning who I was because I was too much. I was not like the other children. So, there was always that who you are not like my other children. So, it was kind of like being who I am is wrong, so I had to fight and rebel against that. But despite me being against being told who to be, what to agree on, and all that. There was a part of me that I was not aware of. I got to be aware of that later when I looked at my relationships, whether it was at work or in my romantic relationships. There was just some toxic patterns that were playing, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and life happened. And when I say life happened, I mean life happened. First thing, it's me going into friendship, relationship with the emptiness, with the wanting validation, wanting approval, wanting to be accepted because I felt unaccepted from my own family, you know. So I found myself, I was an accountant, and just like any other person who is in this corporate world and striving, we often think we are doing it for our children. Because I had my first child when I was 24, and I was still young by then. And this is somebody who, as a child, just because of my own wounding, I always saw that I'll never have any children. But at 24, I found myself with a child. And that changed my life because, as much as I didn't want to have a child, when I had this being here, it changed my life in the sense of just a love that I couldn't even describe, you know. And then a bit 2+ years after I had the second child, which was also a choice that I made from, I would say, my wound. Because having older sisters who were older enough to be like they have children my age, there was that huge gap. And for me, growing up with that kind of like siblings who were more like motherly than siblings, I was just like, I want to have my children to grow together so that they don't have to have what I had, yeah, like the separation that I felt with my siblings. So I wanted my children to bond and all that. So I had these two children. And another thing is I didn't want to have my children to have different fathers because I grew up in that environment. So for me, I felt like, okay, if I have two children with one guy, then that's okay. Not forgetting that I had children before I was married. And what does the tradition say? You know, we have the cultural, societal judgment, whether we talk about it or not. And at times, it's not even about, like right now, when we look at 2024, we can say, yeah, it's okay, people have children and all that. But deep down, there is a part of us that wishes things were different. I wish I was married. I wish I was, you know. So I found myself in a situation where I was a single parent doing this accounting job where I was coming home at 2 a.m., not even being fully present for my children as I thought I was doing it for my children. I was fighting, I was working hard for my children. And then this identity of a job, because my job was my identity. It was accepted in the society. When I said I was an accountant, it's kind of like there was something about that. But deep down, it was sucking life out of me. And then it happened that I lost my job. And shortly after, I had this premonition where my younger brother had an accident. And I told him, I dreamt of you having an accident. And he said, actually, I said, you were dead because the way it was happening, it was real. And he said, I'm still going to be here for a long time. And 2 weeks after the accident happened, near death experience. And after that incident, I would say during that accident, the reason why it's very important in my journey is because when I saw him lying there, kind of like lifeless, it broke me. But I remember I went home and I sat down and I said, God, save his life. And whatever that I'm here to do, I'm willing to do. Because I knew from childhood that there is a path that is calling. It was the healing. But when I shared what was happening, what I was experiencing as a child, my parents felt like, you should go to church because you might be called to be a traditional doctor. So they didn't want that, you know. So that was the moment when I raised my hand and said, I'm willing to do what my soul came here to do. I signed up for it. And then a year later, I went through the judicial injustice that separated me with my children. And through that turmoil, through that pain, through that rage and everything, my question was, what's the point of giving birth to the children if I can't mother them? I didn't know who I was even because I lost all the things that I identified with until I had a nudge to write and I started writing. And the questions that came through was, who are you without your religion? Who are you without your mother, without your father, without your job, without your house, without your husband, your wife? It was like writing, and it was okay. I was enjoying the writing. But at the end, who are you without your children? And that caught my attention. I couldn't breathe for a while. I just started crying. It's kind of like I saw a ghost actually, because I was just like, I dropped the pen and I was like, this message is for me. And the next question is, but who am I? I don't know. But through that came the woman who is here doing what I'm doing.
Fascinating. I have so many questions. Let's talk about, so while you watched your brother go through the trauma, is that when you decided? I think what I'm interested in is when you made that jump or leap or learned or became or understood that you are a human MRI and psychic surgeon. Can you talk to
The
us about that a little bit?
the first time that it actually dawned on me about this, because growing up where I come from, we talk about this, the gift, and there are people who can also like with the psychic as in like people talking about, okay, this is what you are meant to do and all that. So I've always received that wherever I was. It was kind of like, oh my God, the gift that you have. Another man who was a leader of a big church back in Africa, he said, if I hear that there is a woman from the east side and is helping people and that woman is you, I'm gonna come for your help. But at that moment, it wasn't like, yeah, whatever, it was just kind of that kind of thing. But when it dawned on me, like deeper about this gift, my mother was sick before she passed. And I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, it's kind of like I was in her body. And I was feeling this pain, tearing, and all that. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't know what is happening with me. I am going through a deep pain here. And she asked me, what is happening? And I started describing what is happening, where the pain is and how it feels like. And she said, that's my pain. And I said, no, think I'm sick. But I wasn't. It was hers. So that's I would say that was like that imprint that just came through at that moment for me to know how deep this is. So what was happening I didn't embrace my gifts at that moment, but it's kind of like when I say I embody someone, I kind of like step into the energetic fields and I pull that out. I identify what is happening, but at the same time pull it out, pull that pain. But at that time when all this was happening, it was kind of like, when you just like put in the water and you just told to swim. So I didn't know how to do that,
Right.
until later. That's when I developed it. Even when I started at first, it's kind of like I grabbed the pain, but I didn't know what to do with it. So at times it took like 2 weeks while I'm working on this pain. But for somebody that I was working with, immediately that pain is gone just like that. And then with time, I got to master this gift because I'm not learning from somebody. It's like something that is coming through me. I get to learn by doing and by being. Yeah. So being a psychic surgeon and human MRI, that's just that. I sit here and I get to know what is happening in the body, what is happening, where are the emotions stored, or maybe we're talking about money, maybe we're talking about relationships, but the body is telling me what is going on. So every time, even through a chat, I can be chatting with someone like hi, and they're saying hi, but what hit me is what is happening. That's why I say if you are not aware of your energetic fields, what you are transmitting at all times, you may go through life, you desire to create, but every time when you take 2 steps forward,
Or
you're going to take 3 steps back. Or even someone is opening up to you and it's kind of like, oh my God. But then all of a sudden they have shut down. You don't know what is happening because there is a lot of things. When I meet people, there are people that I can meet them. And the moment we meet, instead of whoever they're being, I can be hit by just a smell from the aura, you know. And often it's not the smell that you want to stick around. But for me, because I have higher senses or extraordinary senses, I can smell that ill energy that is coming through. And for somebody, if you go maybe to offices, you might just see people turning you down or whatever, and you don't know what is happening. But here is the problem. Like they say, I can hear what you're saying. I can hear, I can't hear what you're saying because who you being is getting in the way. And who you being, it's a lot of things that are in between. As much as can be our life experiences, there is also the patterns that we are born in, whatever that we've inherited. And there is also other lifetimes. This is what comes through. It's not like only our experiences, is the imprints that we are born into. And it's also other lifetimes that may be interfering with whatever that you want to create. And as I'm speaking, it's quite interesting because as I'm speaking about that, I'm just feeling a lot of energy that is kind of like making the whole left side weak, the left hand, especially the knuckles. There's just a lot of things that is just happening there. And for me, that shows how the feminine is also affected, even the receiving, the receiving of ourselves and the receiving of what is meant to come through. So it's just like this energy that kind of like hit me along the way. And also it depends on what we're talking about.
It's interesting because as you were explaining that, I don't know if you saw, I went to rub my left shoulder because I just felt something in my left shoulder, and that's what you were talking about, the left side. To- um,
That's just it. Even when we started from the beginning, if you are comfortable with me sharing what came through in the beginning, are you?
sure.
Yeah. As we just started like the greetings and we just talking, first thing what came through was like that heaviness around the heart, like just by the
Mhm.
chest going back, and also even the throat, which shows me they're not fooling expressing of your highest truth, expressing of yourself. So it is kind of like there was the heart and then the throat that came through, but just now it just went to the whole left
Yeah.
side. So it's not surprising that you felt that. And that's just it, that I'm not talking about something. It's if you are tuned in, which I believe you are, that's why you were able to know, to witness that. For some people, I may be talking about something and it's kind of like, I don't know, but then later that's when they will be like, whoo, that's what you're talking about, because now I'm feeling it. For some people, it comes
Yep.
later. For some people, it happens in the now moment. Because here's the thing, I always tell people that I can't tell you about what is happening without shifting something because it's in your energetic field. So by being there, there is some exchange, there's energy that I'm transmitting, and there is something that is happening. So at times for some people, even by being here, open and listening, they may feel a bit tired afterwards. And why is that? Because there's something that has been transmitted as we're speaking. So it's magical.
It is, and it's mystical. And I have to tell the audience that it's real because as I'm listening to her, I can feel the energy, and I know, we're on a computer and we're doing video, virtual video, and all that, but I am feeling the energy coming off you, or maybe you're feeling my energy, like you said when we first started talking. You felt the heaviness in my heart. So let's talk about that for a second. I told you before we recorded that this podcast was about a relationship that I was in, that for 2.5 years I was madly in love with this beautiful woman who I thought was my soulmate, fill in the blank. And the relationship didn't work for many, many reasons. And I had to walk away. But there was such a heaviness, heartbreak, pain, void in my heart, my soul, my essence, that I was, as a man, and I see that you work with many men. In your bio, you talked about you work with men, and I had explained to you that for the majority of my life, it was chasing relationships one after the other, not women, but looking for love, looking for acceptance, looking to be understood, and filling that void that I have with, in my case, a female companion, but never able to sustain that. Never able to. I can meet women, I can charm them, get into relationships with them, but that's, and maybe a year goes by, but then things start to go south. They start to go bad. And I used to point the finger. Oh, I chose poorly. She was bad. She was this. But I had to realize at some point, what was the common denominator? Me. I was the one going through life from one woman after the other, and they're just not working. So, yeah, maybe some of them were, I chose poorly. Some of it might have been my alcoholism. But for the past 10 years of my sobriety, I can't blame the alcohol anymore. And
Yeah.
yeah, so let's talk about you. So I see that you work with men who have, uh, I believe, have are looking to transform their lives. So
Yeah.
let's take my example. I've
Yeah.
been single now. I've stayed single for the past year and a half on purpose because I need to fix what's broken.
Yeah.
So how would you approach your uh, what you do to if I no, but if I came to you to help for help, how would you guide me? Or I don't want to say fix me because you
Can
can't
you
fix
ask that
me, but
again?
I can fix me. I fix me.
Ask that again. I couldn't get the question. We had a disruption.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
You blacked out a second. So I'm a year and a half single, and I've taken this time off to reflect on myself. What am I doing wrong? Why can I not be happy in my own skin?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I feel that I need a woman next to me in my life to fulfill that void? What's broken inside
Yeah.
of me?
Yeah. That's actually a great question. And as a man, even being here and having this podcast to talk about this and being open and vulnerable, I wanna bow my head to you.
Thank you.
I have so much respect for men who are willing to embrace where they're at and say, I need help and
I
this
need
is
help.
normal and let's talk about it. Because I always say patriarchy made men powerless by shutting off their hearts and it made women powerless by shutting off their womb. So let's jump into that. Because what is coming through, like my first thing as we're speaking about that, is not about what I know. There's a lot that I know that I can talk about. But I observe what the body is sharing with me, like what is going on here. And the first thing that came through is just by the solar plexus, the power center. It's kind of like three pins, the way this energy is showing out, ta, ta, ta. And then it goes back to the inner child. So that's where I would say the problem is, the disconnection is. So, because when our inner child does not feel safe, it kind of like sabotages everything. It's even hard for you for you, when I say for you, I'm not talking to you as Andrew, I'm talking to everyone because we go through this. It's when it comes to relationships, you don't get into a relationship as a whole person looking for a partnership. You are more looking for something to complete you. But the
Correct.
truth is, no one can complete you. You have to find that wholeness from within you. So
Correct.
it takes us back to the inner child, which often this is where the wounding happened, you know, where, because even when you're talking about traumatic childhood trauma and all that, at times we think it's something big, but it can be as something as parents not being present. Doesn't matter. Some people they abandon you for whatever reason. Some are caught up in drugs and alcohol. Some they just live. And I mean, when I look back in the past, men used to not be present in their children's life. The mother was left, and as much as the mother was also present, the mother was dealing with a lot. And being a single mother, I know that. You get to provide for your children, you get to provide mentally, emotional, and physically. And that can take a toll on yourself. And I say that as a mother, if at all you are also not doing the work, what your children are going to get, despite you being present, they're going to get your emotional instability. They're going to get your emotional wounding. And at times, as mothers, at times the pain that we are receiving from the father of the children because we feel powerless to share it with a man. It's kind of like something that we unconsciously share with the child. You are just like, oh father, you are just like, you are just like, you are just like. So the child grow up with that feeling unworthy and all that. But for you, that's where it takes me. It takes me just directly to your inner child. And when I go connect to that, there is some heaviness that I'm also feeling, like around your pelvic area. There's a lot that is happening there around your pelvic area, which is like when we working together, we can dive deep into that. But I always say one of the core pillars of my work, or one of the things that I work on, is the sexual sovereignty. That is our connection with our sexual energy. Because our sexual energy is connected to our purpose, it's connected to our pleasure, it's connected to our creativity, it's connected to our finances. And that is like an individual connection with that, not where you coming from. Because for men, you find that men are sexually active, but it's the sexual activity, because the pelvic area is not connected to the heart. And again, even when I look at the whole sexual energy, when I say there is some heaviness when I go to your pelvic area, it could be many reasons. But the people that we have in sex with, where are they coming from? What is that energy? So there is when we merge with these people, there is an energy transfer that happens at a deeper level beyond even being present with those people. So you realize that from there, it's kind of like we've gathered all this negative energy and negative entities and all that, and we try to create life from this. So I believe in disconnect as much as I believe in disconnecting from ancestral patterns that do not serve you, even sexual patterns that do not serve you, separating from the people that you've been with, because you realize that sometimes you've been people and your energy is entangled and all that. And even if you are separate, sometimes relationships, you separate on bad terms. And if you've connected at that level, you are entangled even beyond being together in your physical reality. If I'm angry with you and maybe a memory pops up and it's kind of like this motherfucker, whatever that I say about Andrew, I can say it wherever I am. But because we are deeply entangled here, enmeshed, you may feel that. And you are feeling that not as, it's kind of like it's you who have that self-hatred or even anger towards yourself, but it's because of someone that you had a sexual connection with. So there is a lot that comes with the sexual energy that also may cause the disconnection. And on the other hand, when it comes to also the sexual energy, no matter how much we love sex, we all do, we are sexual beings, but at the same time there is shame around this energy. I compare this energy as money. We love money, but we are ashamed of it because of a lot of things that happened or that were done to us by people who had it. So we get to deal with the whole shame around the having it and not having it, and release all that. So for me, when I look at what is showing up in your energetic fields, the moment you ask me that question, it's your power, which means you get to own your power and be okay being in your power. Because some people, you're not struggling because you are powerless or anything. It's because you are afraid of it. And it's quite interesting. I'm talking about power, I'm talking about money, I'm talking about sex. All these three things, they have the same thing. We love it, but we're afraid of it. We're afraid of who we become if we get to embody it. And even when it comes to the denying of who you are, which could be ending up in you engaging in, engaging in addiction, whether it's food, alcohol, sexual addiction, drug addiction, and all that. Often it's because we want to numb a part of
Yep.
us that desire to express itself. So we find something to numb it. We're still denying our power. We're still running away from ourselves. But one way or the other, we get to come back. And I look at myself. I mean, I've tried everything. I was more an alcoholic in the sense of like the going, because we make this normal. Like every weekend you're going out to drink, maybe Friday till Sunday, then you go to work Tuesday till Thursday, and then Friday you start again. It's kind of like it's for fun. We make it normal. But when I look at it, when I was living that kind of life, doing all of that, and it became more clear when I looked at the relationships that I had, especially where the children were involved. where there was that alcohol, deep alcohol addiction. And I had a problem with that. And I knew that I'm not willing to be and raise my children in that kind of an environment. And being on this path of spirituality and feeling like, for instance, in my previous marriage, my then husband had a problem with me being on this path. And for him, it was like, come on, God does not exist. It's just a fantasy. Just do your accounting purpose for what? So everything that I tried to do for him, it was like, you are crazy, you are crazy, you are crazy. So I had a choice. Am I going to choose to sacrifice who I am to sustain this relationship, or I'm willing to be myself and follow what my soul is calling forth? So that has cost me that marriage by standing in my truth, because the reason why we're afraid of embodying our power is because we're afraid of losing what is normal and the people that we thought we belong to. And if you have fear of not belonging, if you get to be yourself, that means that relationship is not worth your time and place. So when I went through that separation, actually, here's the thing: I'm conflicted. I knew that this marriage is not for me because I knew what I wanted. And before the divorce even happened, I received my divorce papers energetically. It was like a vision that came through so strongly, and this man came into that room, and I could see how broken he was.
Hmm?
He gave me an envelope, and I wanted to hug him, and he was just angry. He refused to take my hug, and he left. And a week or so later, or two, I received the divorce papers. And for me, that vision, what it was telling me, what was happening, is kind of like some of the people, we meet them for a reason. We have this thing of, even if we are married at times, it's kind of like, what do we say? Until death do us part,
Yep.
forever, and yeah, all those
In
things.
sickness and health, and yeah.
Yeah, all those things. But in truth, the soul is here to experience itself. We may meet somebody that we were meant to meet, and it can be, where have you been, soulmate? There is parts of us that we see in those people that appreciate or are happy to meet each other. But then when the purpose is complete, you are ready to explore something else. I experienced myself, my soul dancing while I was going through the divorce. And I also saw a part of my human that was also in pain and not wanting it to be like that. At that moment, I also experienced a lot of my ancestral, especially women who went before me, who felt like it's not safe for you to live that marriage. What it's kind of like me wanting more out of life. I'm just being selfish. What do you want? Why can't you just be with this man and allow this man to take you to trips and all of that? At times that's what we do. We sacrifice who we are, which is the gift that is calling to express itself through us, our magic, our authenticity. We sell our soul for something, which could be those traits, which could be whatever money that we may get. But here's what that is costing us: it's going to cost you your voice, it's going to cost you your name, it's going to cost you identity. So even when you talk about the name, there's names that we are born into. There is imprints just with the name, because the name is a big identity of who we are. So going through that, at the end of it, I remember when I was in a meditation, and the question that came through, because there was resentment, where I felt like if this man could change and stop this alcohol and all that. But the question was, what part of you has a problem with his alcoholism? I was like, that's a weird question, because alcoholism is not good, and it's not good for his health and whatever. But at that moment, I got this download to realize that I have a problem with my father's alcoholism. I'm attracting people with alcohol issues because the inner child in me still wants to save his father. The inner child in me still hopes that maybe if I can be there for this man and rescue him, he's gonna stop drinking, and at some point he's gonna love me. So it still takes me back to my roots. So this is why the inner child is coming through. Then there is ancestral stuff and all that. So you find that you are looking for the love that you longed for the most in the people that you attract.
Okay. I did not tell you this before we recorded, so the audience can understand this. I have two things to talk about. You talked about my pelvic region, you felt the energy and maybe trauma, or you felt something. I just had my hip replaced 2 weeks ago. Okay. And I did not tell you that. So I'm home recovering from surgery. So you picked up on the pelvic, the hip is part of the pelvis.
Yeah.
Yeah. So while I know what you're referring to, the pelvic region of in the chakra, that's I forget what region that is, but that whole area is traumatized right now. My pelvic
Yeah.
region is recovering from invasive surgery. I've had both hips replaced now. So the left hip was done many years ago, and 2 weeks ago they did the right hip. So that's very interesting. You picked up of all the parts of my body, you focused on the pelvis. And
Yeah.
I did not tell you that I had hip replacement surgery.
No.
The other thing I wanted to mention is I came from a childhood upper middle class. My father was a doctor, my mother was his nurse. I'm the oldest. I have three younger sisters, and we had what you would look in the American dream. We had the normal life, beautiful house, two dogs, all that stuff. But and I had good private schooling and yada yada. I did not have the love and attention from my father. He was working
Yeah.
12 hours a day. He was out there making money to put us through school and to put a roof and food and all that into us. But he was not. And so when he did have his downtime, when he would have a vacation or a couple of days off, he did what he wanted to do with his wife, my mom. And my mom was a good mother, but there wasn't many I love yous and a lot of affection. So my childhood, while on the outside the picture was picture perfect, the
Yeah.
inside I was longing for their love,
Yeah.
you know? And I'll tell you something that I'm struggling with. When my mother's birthday, now both parents are deceased, they're gone, and they're wherever they are. I struggled to go visit their gravesite on Mother's Day, Father's Day. This weekend is Father's Day. Their birthdays. I struggled to go visit them because I think I'm angry at them
Mm.
or resentful. So it's
Yeah.
interesting you picked up on that.
And I just love that because as I'm sitting here and you are talking about that, I can feel, like I say, I call it heaviness on your chest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, especially, it's kind of like, especially your father, you know, that's kind of like the expression that is coming through, even when it comes to your energetic fields. That connection to him is not really strong, you know. And here's the thing, even when you say that anger towards them, you know, we talk about parents and our relation to parents, our distrust even from our parents at the highest level is still our connection to source, right? Because when it comes to any authority that you were exposed to or you introduced to as a child, your authority were your parents. So how that authority treated you, because it's not about, here we're making it about like whatever lifestyle, you know, it's not about that. For us human beings, it's more like the small things that matter a lot. For a child, not being present for that child, it's kind of like, oh, the work is more important than me. And you find that even people who have that trauma because the parents were busy working, somehow unconsciously they resent that working, like, because even the expectation from the parents can be, this is the standard and you get to fulfill that and all that. So there's two children can come out of this: the one who resent that completely, or the one who are gonna be more workaholics because that was the only time where they got the parents' attention. When you passed a lot and it's kind of like, oh, you did well. So they confuse the compliments of their achievements with love. So now they start to work hard, and it's quite interesting because it still interprets to the relationship, where you kind of like finding someone who's going to be a project. You have to work hard to earn that love.
Mhm.
So it's still the same thing that happens. So I acknowledge how you're feeling, and like you said, this Father's Day is coming, and the most important thing is being with that and not making it wrong. Because at times, what I find often that is happening, especially with this false positivity, toxic positivity, people do not really progress or grow or evolve at the level that they're meant to because they're holding into false positivity. And magic happens when you just embrace what is happening. This is where I'm at right now. And I'm going to acknowledge, because it's not about you, Andrew, even though it's about you. It's about the inner child who felt how he felt. So it's not about rushing to say, rush to forgive. It's like, how does my inner child feel about this relationship? And you are willing to listen and honor where the inner child is. It's because when you rush to say, "Oh, just forgive them," you are old now, and you've got to, you are not acknowledging that inner child. You are doing to that inner child what your parents did to you, and people often do this. We rush through it. So acknowledge that. That's the first step, and when it's gone, it will be gone. Then you move into the next step that will be called forth.
And I'll tell you something else that I don't often talk about on this podcast, but when I was in my late teens, 16, 17, 18, 19, I was aware that I was missing my parents' love. And I said to myself, when I have children someday, I will not, I'm going to break this pattern. I'm going to give them what I never had. And you know what? I failed because 7 years later, I got married and I had my first son. I was 27. And just around there is when my addiction, alcoholism kicked in, and I was gone. And well, and I was only married for 7 years. But when my wife and I split up, and she took the kids, off I went. I was out looking for to fulfill that void in my heart,
Yeah.
and I ignored my children. And I did the same thing that my father did, except my father didn't do it on purpose. He was working. I think he didn't know what he was doing. He gave me the best of everything. I had beautiful home, beautiful clothes, uh, vacations, and yada yada. I, as a father, have failed, and I am in the latter couple of years of my life. I am now struggling to make that up to my children today, who are adult men. One of them has children, who has my grandchildren. Actually, I'm seeing them later today.
That's
But
lovely.
I feel, thank you. I feel very guilty that I repeated the pattern that my father did, and I'm trying to make up for it every single day.
Yeah. And I appreciate you for sharing that, because I believe a lot of people can relate with that. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing, as long as you are here doing the work, in my opinion, you have not failed. But the only way that you are going to bring some awareness to what your father was not aware of is by going deep into those dark trenches. Because the reason why you numbed your
Yep.
emotions with
Mm-hmm.
alcohol is because of that the pain and the emotions that were suppressed and repressed. And trust me, it did not start with you,
No.
right? It did not start with him either. It's a pattern that is there. And for you and most of the people who are stuck in alcohol, in all sorts of addiction, is because of the sensitivity. You can't toughen up and fully close up in this kind of environment. So it's gonna break you, and by breaking you, it's gonna take you into that deep disconnection, to that deep wounding. And not many people make it out of there.
Mm.
But here you are. 9 years of sobriety is it's a big success
Mm.
for someone who was married to an alcoholic. and even went through the pain of being separated from my children because of because when you are disconnected and in pain, the only thing that you want to do is kind of like to hurt the other one. You're not even looking at what is best here. Are the children best with me or what? It's more like I just want to take this woman down. You think you are better without me or some shit like that. But on the other hand, it's also the pain going to transferring the pain to our
Yep.
children, or
Mm-hmm.
even when there's parental alienation and all that. All those things, they cause more wounds. So for you to have gone that and to be where you are, I know what it takes. For someone who was married, I was in a relationship and I have two children with someone who's struggling with that, and it's something that is in their family. I personally am coming from that kind of an environment, where there was some chaos, but at the core of it is like because your father was drunk, you know, and being married to one who was still going through that and even in denial to say you need some help. So at times you have to go through it, and there's going to be one who's being called to break that. And for you to break that pattern, it has to come, it's kind of like destroy you,
Yep.
but it's more like they say, the light, there is that crack that the light comes through. If you didn't go to that point where you cracked and found yourself, because we are at a point where there is shame, guilt, feeling powerless, worthless, and all sorts of things. And at the same time, as much as you are there, the guilt is coming through because at the core of your being, this is not who I'm meant to be. There is more that I'm meant to be and do. And by healing all these things at its core, at the same time, you are taking that vow to your children, saying that it stops with me. I
Right.
might have gone deep into the trenches, but I'm going to use this pain so that even my grandchildren don't have to go through that. And you are still here, you are still alive, you can do the best that you can, especially through conversations, you know. So I appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just want to mention, because I've never really talked about this either on the podcast, while I'm an alcoholic in recovery, there is no pattern of alcoholism in my family. My parents were not heavy drinkers. I have three sisters who are not into drugs or alcohol. My grandmother on my mother's side was an alcoholic and died at 50 from alcoholism. But so I got the gene. I would imagine that was passed down to me. And so far, the three of my children, I do not see any signs of. They're all doing very well
She's
in
awesome. Yeah.
careers and all that. So, okay, how? Well, let's begin to wrap up. I am just blown away by your wisdom, your abilities. Th- you showed me today that you are indeed a human MRI to pick out my pelvis area, which I just had trauma to that area, is amazing. And so, where can people find you online if they would like? You work internationally, I would imagine.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so tell us where we can find you online and what you do.
I'm available on all social media platforms as Gao Motsemme, GaoMotsemme. I've got links in my what do you call it, website,
Website.
gaomotsemme.com. Yes, you can go in there and book a call, and I believe Andrew will share another link where I'm offering a 45 minutes intro to my work, so that we can dive deep and see what is stopping in your way. Just a little bit as what I spoke about with and what is coming through. So when we get on the call, we're just gonna go to the core of this, and what you do with it is up to you. I always say my work is to tell you what is going on. If you wanna dive deep and heal this at its core, I'm on. If not, then I would have shared with you what your body and your other aspects wanted you to know. Yeah.
And I will put all of that. I'll put your website and all your social media links in the show notes. Any final thoughts to my audience that you
Yeah.
would put?
I feel that blessed. That blessed to be here with you. I've witnessed you being open, and for me, the space that you can hold for yourself is a space that you can hold for your audience. You
Yes.
understand? So by being that open and sharing the reality, because as much as we love the elevation, the expansion, and all that, we get to honor the human as in like what is happening on the ground. So our emotions are the evidence of life. Every time we feel the sadness, let's not make the sadness wrong, the grief, let's not feel it wrong. Allow it to inform you. And also know that it's coming through because there is something that is not in alignment. But on the other hand, as humans, we are here to embrace and express who we are in truth. If I didn't go through all those emotions that are uncomfortable, I wouldn't be able to heal at the level that I'm able to heal. But for me, an aspect that came through, Divine Mother Ocean came through at some point when I didn't want to feel certain emotions because I identified them as negative. And she said, you get to embrace all that you are, all your beauty, all the rage, everything, because those people who are meant to love you, they will be with you. And I'm not saying go and puke and vomit in everyone. Find a better way to process that. But on the other hand, don't deny and repress those emotions. She said, you'll think that people love the ocean, but people don't like the ocean. They just like the surface and looking good in bikinis and all that. But when it comes to the deep, dark waters, no one likes the ocean. But the ocean, again, when it's stormy and angry and all that, she doesn't let anything stand on her way.
No.
But doesn't change who the ocean is. It still remains the ocean, even when you find the calm, still waters. So whoever that you are and whatever that you're going through, the truth is it doesn't change who you are. At the core of your being, you are still a magnificent being that you are. Let's do the work and embrace our magnificence.
And I think that's a beautiful place to end this episode. Hal, thank you so much for your wisdom, your experience, and sharing your story. And God bless you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank Gao Motsemme very much for coming on. What an incredible interview. It gave me the chills when she spoke about my pelvic area and when she touched upon the trauma from my childhood, which compared to many others was not trauma in the sense that we know, but the lack of the love that I sought from my parents, who gave me everything that I could need as a child growing up in the United States, except for the love. It came in the form of money and material and food, etc. She got me to open up about that, which I have not done in a long, long time, if ever. And if I did, it was in therapy. So thank you so much, Hal. By the way, her name is spelled Gao, but it's pronounced Hao. Motsemme, Motsemme. Thank you very much. And thank you for listening. And if you're enjoying this podcast, please take a few seconds and go down to Apple or Spotify, where you can leave 5 stars. If you think I deserve 5 stars, and on Apple, you can leave a little blurb. And maybe share this show with a friend or family member, somebody that you know that might benefit from something that I'm giving you over this past year and a half. And of course, please, if you're in a relationship or thinking of or committing or getting engaged, or are there any red flags that you are overlooking, you're ignoring, or you simply missed like I did? Or you saw the red flags and you said, nah, I'll fix that. I can fix that. Nah, that's not a big deal. I can live with that. Please, folks. Until next time, Anonymous Andrew. Ciao.